computer. All right. All right. Well, a little housekeeping here this morning. Welcome to our Equine Emergency Evacuation handheld radio session. My name is Doug Theriault. I'm the Communications Director for EEE and tonight's Zoom host. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you wouldn't mind, please mute your microphone currently. There is usually a microphone icon on the bottom of your screen that has a red line through it that'll indicate that your mic has been muted. This helps inadvertent noise from impacting the presentation or swapping out a person's view from speaker when they're in speaker view from shifting to you or the presentation. To assist in the viewing of tonight's presentation, select speaker view versus the gallery view. That's an icon typically in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. This will allow you to just see myself and the presentation when I share my screen. You can minimize the size of my video by looking at the little icon there. There's 4 icons, a straight bar, a little rectangle, a larger one, and a grid. Hit the little small one and it'll just be a minor view of myself. Please hold all your questions tonight until the end of tonight's presentation. At that time, we'll open it up for a general Q&A. If you do have a question during the presentation, feel free to use the chat option at the bottom of the screen to ask your question. Send that to everyone. There's a little pull down there. By default, you could send your message to everyone, but ask your question there and we'll go over those at the end of the presentation. And then tonight's session is being recorded. I just started that for those who are unable to make this time slot. So at this time, let me share my screen and get into the presentation. So tonight's session is about handheld radios that EEE will be using. Again, I'm Doug Theriault, and along with me tonight in attendance here is Ron Purcell. He's our communications co-lead to help me out and also helped in providing some content for this presentation. Tonight, I want to cover basic introduction of the radios. This is big picture stuff, just kind of some general usage scenarios of why you want to use or may want to use a radio while performing missions for the EEE. I want to go over each of the 3 different models of radios that we have for allocation that we can give out to folks. And then, of course, a basic operations guide, what buttons to push, how to use the darn things. And then logistics, checking in, checking out of a radio, and then some maintenance. Basically, one model in particular requires some AA batteries, so there may be some batteries that need to be changed. And at the end, we'll wrap it up with a Q&A session. So handheld radios are going to be available to our evacuation rigs, the escorts that'll be preceding them, to the folks at staging who are operating safety and security operations, as well as our IC liaison and logistics. They provide a fast, quick communications mean. It's faster than dialing a phone number. You can do this between a single team or across a team. So if you're within staging, you can communicate to within staging, or if you need to talk to logistics, staging can jump at a different channel and boom, talk to logistics. These radios are pre-programmed, so you don't have to fuss too much with the buttons. I am going to provide a laminated cheat sheet at staging for handout for use. It's going to have some channel information on it, as well as some pertinent phone numbers. I think those two, on one side will be phone numbers, and the other side will be channel information on the radios. The handheld radios are going to be primarily used when EEE is deployed at one or more staging areas. Rig escorts may use them all the time, regardless of whether we're operating virtually or through a staging session. and because the rig and the escort need to talk to each other, these handheld radios are going to be vital for the rigs. Basically, you can communicate within your team. Let's say staging. You want to worry about traffic or loading or unloading of animals, and you need to coordinate between members of your group. Then you could be on, in this case, a channel. This channel is called FRS2, and you'll be talking with each other. If staging needs to talk to logistics, you just jump on a different channel and communicate that, hey, I need some hay, or I need a cleanup over here, I need some help. So you can ask another group or another team for assistance. The rigs and the escorts will use them to communicate between each other on a different channel, unique channel to them, and they'll be passing information about road hazards or travel conditions along the way. And then from comms, we may be talking to everyone to talk about incoming missions that are coming in. Hey, staging, heads up, there's a mission such and such coming in with 3 horses. We may have an alert for everybody. We're going to need to communicate to all teams and say, hey, there's a bad weather front approaching or so. So radios could be useful within the staging area to keep us all in communication between yourselves, as well as to other groups that you need to interface with. There are 3 different types of radios that we've got, primarily from donations. 2 of them are from the same type of Asian manufacturer called Baofeng or Pofeng, self-contained, rechargeable battery-operated units, the UB5R and the UB82. And then there's a group of radios, a big batch of radios, about 17 or 18 of them, that we received from San Diego as a donation. And those are some ICOMs. These ICOMs are battery operated from AA batteries, however. They're not using rechargeable batteries currently. So basic operation. And I apologize in advance because this is the part of the presentation that I have to stop sharing my screen at the point and kind of walk you through some basic operations. Let's see if I can do this without too much trouble. I want to do this as I am speaking to you on the phone. This is a UV5R radio. It's got a small LCD screen at the top, channel selector, and in the side of the radio, a big rectangular button here is the thing called push to talk. Volume, is it on off? Is at the top where you just turn it on?
Channel mode.
And it comes on and speaks to you, tells you you're in channel mode. To talk, you just hit the little rectangular button on the side and talk. These radios are going to be pre-programmed for the channel. So when you check out a radio, we're going to give you it, and it's going to be set up for your team. So you, right off the get-go, you don't need to, if you don't need to talk to a different team, you don't have to change channels. On this particular one, we can see it. There are 2 sets of channels. A little triangle that moves when I push this blue button, AB, selects 2 banks of channels. I can have 2 pre-programmed channels. So FRS2 is for staging. MERS 5 is for evac, for the rigs. And if you want to go between the 2, you're talking on this one, you hit the little rectangular button, you're talking on that channel, hit the blue button, it swaps to the other channel. Now you can hit this one and you're talking to the evac rigs. In general, that's about it. There's a 2 little triangles here that actually select
1,
different channels.
2, 3, 2.
You typically won't need to do that because the radio is going to be pre-set up for you. But if you need to, we'll have a little guide that'll tell you which group is on what channel, and these 2 triangle buttons are used to select those. The bottom other corner here, the pound key, you can see that it's got a little lock symbol. When you hit that,
Lock.
it'll tell you it's locked. that allows you to, no matter what now, you hit the keys, nothing's going to change. That way there, you know, you're just using the radio. If you inadvertently hit something, it's not going to change channels. You're all set to go. It's still where you need it to be, and shouldn't have to worry about anything. The next style radio is very, very similar to that one. It's called a UV82. This radio, same thing. It's got a volume control on/off.
Channel mode.
You notice when it turns on, it also gives you a little radio serial number.
Channel mode.
82, and it gives you a number. That is for us, I'll get into later, for logging when you check out a radio. We'll be recording that number. But essentially, it's got the same keys on the front, lock button, the triangles to change the channel, and instead of the blue AB button, it's got a little button called exit over here. You hit it. Oh, I got to unlock it first. Turn the volume up. This is the part where I fumble. All right.
Lock. Unlock.
Okay. If I hit the exit, it'll swap to the other channel. So it works the same way. They just called it the exit key instead of the AB key. Same thing on the side. These radios, however, instead of a big rectangular button, it has two little ones, two small ones, an A and a B. You're setting on the A channel or the B channel. Typically, you'll always be on A, but if you want to use the other one without swapping, you could just hit the button and you'll be on that channel. The last one is an ICOM. It has a volume control with on/off at the top, but it does not talk to you. It's not as nice as the little Asian Chinese ones. The push to talk button is this oval key on the side for transmit. You just hold that in and talk on the radio. And the lock key, you can see that. The lock is this first key, P0, and that's it. You just hold it in for a half a second, it'll beep at you, and your channels will be locked or unlocked. The channel selector is these two little triangle buttons here, channel down, channel up, and if the P0 is locked, it won't change. In this case, it's changing. So we'll go back to locked. And that's it. This radio also has a little bit of a battery compartment in the back for replacing batteries. I'll get into those a little later on during the operation of the radio. So that's the basic operation. It's very simple, on/off, one button to push to talk. And then talking, you want to make sure that you're holding this in an area where you're not eating the microphone. You're a little bit away, a few inches away, talking a normal voice. If you think the other person doesn't hear you, don't yell. Yelling doesn't make it go farther. It really doesn't. It just makes it more difficult to understand you on the other end of the communication. There's going to be a set of channels that everybody will be assigned, and this list is what it is currently. Comms, we will always be listening on two channels from within the staging area, MERS1 and FRS1. If you want to talk to comms control, you jump on one of those two channels and you'll be able to reach us. Within staging team will be on FRS2, logistics, FRS4, safety is 5, security 6, traffic control 7, and the evac and rigs and escorts be on MERS 5. This list may change depending upon interference or anything in the staging area. We just don't know the environment that we're going to be operating in. But as a default, this will be what we go with. When we deploy at staging, the comms group will set up the gear, and if we need to change the configuration, we'll do that right then and there quickly, so that you don't have to worry about anything for that. The channel we picked for the rig and escorts, these ICOM radios, unfortunately, are I can't get it to be programmable, so I picked the channel that was working the best. You want to stay on the assigned channel that you are within your team. If you've got a problem with that, in other words, if you're finding that the comms aren't working, please let somebody from the comms control team know, because we want to go determine what's the cause of there. And then if we've got to have everybody in your team switch to a different channel, we want to know that ahead of time. So let us know, or stay on the channel that you've been assigned. Your radios are also programmed with frequencies that you're not necessarily allowed to transmit on. Those are ham radio frequencies that require a license, but the radios do support it. So we want to make sure that you're not transmitting someplace where you're not allowed or licensed to do so. You can always pass messages within your team using the radio, or to another team, and also to comms control. If you talk through us, you can pass a message through us to any other group, because we have the capability of talking to anybody, even if that means passing the message via a phone link. And it'll keep you from having to go deal with phones and dialing and stuff like that when you need to be hands-on out in the staging area with the animals and your tasks at hand. Leads. You should probably have somebody within a particular team who is your lead. They should be the ones that are probably passing the messages to comms or to other groups. So it's not everybody randomly just talking to another group for materials or equipment or something like that. That's something we can work out with the team leads if that's efficient for them. It may be that they want people to talk directly, or they may have assigned positions so that person will talk directly to them. But if comms needs to talk to a particular team, we're going to be asking for that team lead position. We won't be using names necessarily, because those names will change throughout a week. Oh yeah, and don't forget, if you do switch channels to talk to another team, don't forget to switch your radio back, because sometimes you say, hey, why can't I talk to my team again? And it's because you've forgotten to return back to the other channel. We need to come up with some sort of a way to identify particular people, such as the staging manager. From comms, I'm going to be just calling the group staging, and I expect to be talking to a staging manager. Rigs, or the trailers carrying horses, will have a rig number associated with them, as will the evacuation escorts. The old name was pilot, but the escorts will have a number associated with them. They'll be known as rig number or escort number. Comms will be our net control in our communications or control. So you just say, staging to comms, or comms to staging manager. In all your communication using a radio, make sure you speak clearly, slowly. Don't yell, because it doesn't make you clear on the other end. And also beware of staying out of the wind. These radios don't have any wind protection, no way to muffle the sound, so you can get some nasty side effects if you're in direct, if the wind is blowing across the mic. The microphones on these radios are little tiny pinholes in the fronts of the radios that you need to speak into. They are okay, but they are also susceptible to wind noise. So if you're when a windy day out there, make sure you turn your back. You're talking with your back to the wind, and you're talking in front with the radio. Your wind is behind you, type thing. So stay out of the wind if possible.
Doug, a quick question.
Can you hold on to the end?
Sure, absolutely.
Phonetics. If you are having trouble getting your message across, we recommend you spell out things phonetically. P is Papa, H is Hotel, O is Oscar. You can pick something, but kind of slow it down and spell it out for the person at the other end if they're trying to write something down and they may be not copying you very clearly. So how do you get a radio? And this is at both staging area and for the evac rig. The evac rigs, Carol was saying, are going to be issued these ICOM radios. So you'll be able to keep those in your truck or your rig. They do use AA batteries, 6 of them. So if you do keep them in your rig, be sure to have some spare batteries on hand. If you leave the radio in the rig on these hot summer days, that could be cause the batteries to expire early. And for escorts or the ham radio operators who are going to be preceding the rigs, if they're available or needed, you should be making sure that your vehicle radio is programmed with the MERS channels primarily. FRS is alternately, but primarily MERS. And if you do that, beware that your rig, your ham rig, is not ideally licensed for use on those frequencies. So be consistent and use less than 5 watts for your power configuration. Only under an emergency situation should you feel free to use higher power if you need to, but that's not recommended. Everyone else at staging, if you're checked into staging through the volunteer portal at staging, you could be picking up your radio at the comms table. There is going to be a table set up with the gear, and all the radios will be in chargers. So you'll be able to pick a radio up at that time. We're going to have a log sheet, which I'll go over in a minute, to make sure that it's properly recorded, and the serial number of the radio logged down with who took it out at what time, etc. Your radios will be fully charged. They should last the full day. It's a function of how often the radio is being used, how often it's being used for transmit, just like your cell phone. But in general, they could easily last all day. So the radios, when you return them, we want to check you out in the log, but also we'll be putting those in the charger for overnight for the next shift who's going to be using them. The log is extremely simple. It's just got the date. It'll have the serial number of the radio that you turn it on. In the case of these ICOMs, it'll be written on the front in white on the front of the radio. And then really want to do this to make sure that all the radios come back, because they're easy to get lost or left behind if we're not careful. But we also want to record if there's a problem. These things die over time. They produce problems. Antennas can break or something can happen. Don't fret about that, but we want to record if you've experienced a problem with it. I want to record that so we can either get it repaired or throw it out and get something and replace it. So the log will help us in that area as well. Batteries. So really this is for the ICOM specific radios. They're AA batteries. No charging is necessary on those. Don't use rechargeable AA's because the radios are not designed to use that. Unfortunately, they're just alkalines. If you happen to turn on your rig and it happens to die, you just have to pop the battery case and replace those batteries. The other radios, those Baofungs or Asian smaller radios, they do use rechargeable batteries. And if it dies while you're out at staging, then return the radio and we'll swap it out and throw that one in the charging bay. So they charge relatively quickly within an hour. So I just want to stop sharing at the moment and just give you a quick, here's the ICOM again. The back of that radio has got a little tab at the top here. Slide that up and this little thing separates. The clamshell, the main radio is this piece here, and then what you're left with is the battery case. The battery case, there is a little side tab. You literally just pull it up, whoop, and there's the batteries. Pop in your replacement batteries, put the cover back on, and you're back good to go. This thing, this clips right back into the radio. You just slide the battery piece down in there, and that's it. Just click it. And it's a clamshell design. It'll close right up, and you're back operational again. So let's see, share screen. All right. Just a note about any radio, for that matter, your cell phone. Batteries don't like extreme temperatures. And here in the Southwest, you know, high temperatures are a killer in vehicles. If you leave your cell phone even out in the dashboard, you're going to find it's not going to work in a very short period of time. But batteries can swell and die from extreme temperatures, primarily the heat. But cold on some of them will stop your thing from actually operating. But beware of heat. Keep it out of direct sun, and you shouldn't have a problem. So what if your radio doesn't work? These radios are low power. They don't operate much more than, they say 5 watts, but in general, they're between 2 to probably 3 watts on a good day, depending on how charged the battery is. They work line of sight. So if you can see the person at the other end, you should be able to talk to them with no problem. They can actually go several miles, 10+ miles even, when there's no obstructions. And those obstructions would be buildings, mountains, hills, which are, of course, very plentiful around here. But even a building will block the radio signal. So if you can see them, the person, you should be able to talk to them just fine. Radios are locked onto a channel. If you inadvertently unlock it and you move it, you won't hear anybody. It'll seem like your radio isn't working. Double check and make sure that your radio is on the assigned channel that your team is on, or go back to comms and ask for help if you need it. We'll be monitoring a couple of channels. We won't be monitoring every team's channels because, to be honest, there's too much data. You guys can jump on FRS1 or MERS1 and talk to us. But we will use your channels in particular if we need to pass a message to you. The other one that really, what if it doesn't work? I mean, again, go see the comms folks at the table and we'll debug it and straighten it out and assign you another radio if it isn't working. The other one is beware of if you're putting the radio in your pocket and you hit the push to talk. If all of a sudden you hit this button and it's jammed in your pocket with something and it holds it down, you're transmitting, that's going to make it where everybody else who's listening on that channel is not going to hear you. They're going to hear your pocket, you know, or whatever on it. So beware. It's very much of a problem. Stuck microphones are a problem that can tie up a channel, and it's challenging at times to figure out who exactly it is who's got the transmitter stuck. But check for your teammates if you find your channel is not working because you're being blocked by someone who's maybe stuck their radio in their pocket. Lastly here, if you want to learn more about radio, got an ad here for becoming radioactive. It's basically obtaining your ham radio license. This is great for emergency preparedness. Let's say you're traveling or riding in the backcountry and you can't get a cellular connection. You probably can easily connect via one of the repeaters in the mountaintops. By getting your radio license, you can be operating instead of over these MERS and FRS channels, especially the folks in the rigs. You can improve our communications capability because you'd be using the repeaters that the comms and escorts are going to be using for long distance communication. Your license also gives you capability to communicate across the globe. There's tons of local ham clubs here if you want to learn more about the hobby. It's an easy exam. We're going to be looking at getting some study guides for the EEE members to check out if you want. I think it's about 30 or 32 multiple choice questions. And if need be, I can sponsor some Zoom class such as what we're doing tonight to help anyone study and learn the hobby if you would like to learn more about radios. So that's it for me formally. I appreciate all that you do as volunteers. I know the animals and their owners appreciate it. And at this time, I'll open the floor up for any questions that people may have. I know, Bob, you EQC had a question there.
Yeah, one quick question, Doug. When we did that comm exercise over at Carroll's, and this somehow got by me, maybe I just wasn't observing close enough. If we have 5 or 6 teams, let's say out in the field, and each team is on a different frequency, how are in the base station, how are we monitoring all those frequencies, or are we just going to talk to them on that frequency and then they have to be listening most of the time on our calling frequency?
No. If we need to communicate with them, if we need to send a message from comms to staging or comms to logistics, then we will jump on their channel with one of the radios and communicate directly with them. If they need to get in touch with us, we will be monitoring. We have a scanner as well as the secondary radio. They'll have to jump on one of the 2 channels, MERS1 or FRS1, and communicate to comms. So that's just within the staging and local area, okay. But it shouldn't be too bad.
I'm just going back to search and rescue. We had sometimes a couple hundred people, and we were just all on the 155, 16. There wasn't that much talk. I
thought of that, but I think with the amount of traffic that may be going on, I wanted to split it up. So that each individual group is not burdened by listening to communications by another group. So it might reduce it. Anybody else have any questions? Let's see.
This is great.
I suggest we use the NATO phonetic alphabet. Thanks, Bob. Yeah, that it will be another class for sure. The tech license is 35 multiple choice. And you can miss a maximum of 9 questions. Okay.
Wow.
There you go. Oscar Kilo. Okay. Okay.
Doug, this is Craig. I did have a question.
Hi, Craig. Go ahead.
Hey. I just wanted just a point of clarification. I can see a potential, and I don't want to go into too many if scenarios or what if scenarios. But we will be using the same frequency. If we have when we have multiple rigs in the same area, is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
so the MERS 5.
Yeah, the MERS 5. It does have a PL tone on it, but it's there will be some overlap between rigs for sure.
With that said, perhaps we should do a little radio protocol with identification, things like that.
Yes, that's rig number to escort number, or rig number to comms, or to evac. But yeah, they need to identify with their rig and then a number.
Okay.
Doug, I had a question.
Yep.
It occurred to us that the necessity to have a radio would primarily occur when we do have a rig escort. Would it make sense to have the rig escort actually keep the radios until
Yes.
we meet up?
Yes, that's a great suggestion. I think they're the ones that are going to get these ICOM radios that have the AA batteries, so they don't have to worry about, you know, chargers or you know, the rechargeable ones. The AA batteries, they can keep a set of spares in their vehicle should they need to replace them.
Okay, and so the rig escort would actually issue that radio to the rig that they are.
Well, we could do it that way. We didn't talk about the logistics. I was thinking of just, you've got well-known rigs, and we potentially got enough radios, we could just assign them to them.
Well, we've got 15 rigs, and my question was, we won't always have a rig escort. So that
Correct.
would be radios that would be going unused in any
Yep.
that's okay. Incident. I don't know. I mean, that's something I'd like to kind of clear up before our evac meeting next week.
All right. Well, if you want to take that one, noodle it, and we can meet offline.
Yeah,
to
let's do that.
Maybe come up with a better way to manage that. But I was just thinking we'd pre-assign and allocate them. But if
Yeah.
you think they'll be unused, then yeah, maybe the escorts, when they meet up with the rigs, they can hand out the radios at that time.
Pros and cons of each.
Yep. All right. Open action. What else? Anybody else has any other questions for tonight? Was it clear enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doug,
That
just
was
one
well
other
done,
thought.
Doug.
Yeah,
Right.
good job, Doug. One other
Let me
quick question.
stop the oh, you got another question. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, and I don't want to be the devil's advocate on this, but I'm just thinking of some of the issues I've had in the past. And if we were all on the same frequency and we had two teams that were a couple miles apart, but we couldn't hear one of those teams because they were in a different topography, but the second team could hear them, you know, they could relay. You know,
Yep.
there's an advantage to monitoring one frequency because the group isn't that big. And I just want you to give that some consideration.
Yep.
Because just to reduce, or, you know, it's the old KISS principle, you know,
simple.
keep it real
Yep.
simple. Yeah, just something to think about.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good. I concur with the escort vehicle having the radios to assign them. Okay. We get another vote for that approach. Okay. Let me stop the recording.